What's up guys, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I wanted to talk about the Nissan GT-R and why this is like the best time to buy a GT-R. They are just so much fun. Obviously, I've owned mine for over 2 years now. I just kind of wanted to talk about a little bit about the values of them and what makes them a worthwhile purchase as far as even just money goes. And then as far as the fun factor, what you get for what you're paying for, how much value you're getting with the Nissan GT-R. So real quick backstory, this is my 2014. I have 37,000 miles on it. I bought it with 24,000 miles just over 2 years ago. So I've had it quite a long time and I love it. Every day I drive it, every modification I do to it, it gets better and better, which is ridiculous. It's literally getting better with age, which we'll talk more about that later in the video. But as far as the pricing goes, so I paid $67,500 for this 2 years ago. And looking at values, they are still going for that same price range for this year, this trim level, and these miles. And looking at kind of the spectrum of GT-Rs with less than 75,000 miles, you're looking at a car around $45,000 to around $65,000. So only a $20,000 difference between the first year 2009s to up into about 2015s and 2016s is what I was looking at. So there's a pretty good range of different GT-Rs you can get with different mileage, all for what is honestly a pretty affordable price point. Yes, $50,000 is still a nice chunk for a car, but if you think about it, the average price of a new car is closer to $40,000. And the fact that you can get a car with this kind of performance for around $45,000, that is a pretty good bargain. And the reason why I say that's such a bargain is because what you get in this car is something that I have yet to find in any other car. I think the closest car now that I have driven to this would be the M4 CS from BMW. Driving that car was very mechanical and raw. Brand new, that was $106,000, which is exactly what this car was, brand new. But even though that car has a lot of the rawness, it still isn't just like this. This car is so mechanical the way it feels. There's a lot of different driving modes, and it seems like the more I drive it, the more I understand how it works, and then the more I'm able to drive it better and better. If you just drive a GT-R one road trip real quick, or just a quick test drive or something, you're not really going to have a good understanding on what this car actually is like to drive. This is one of those cars that, to me, it kind of has its own personality, and it takes time to understand all of the functions of the car and kind of all the little quirks. There's a ton of quirks in this thing. It makes a lot of weird noises. It's clunky. It can be super fast and precise, but then it can also be very slow to respond and clunky and weird. And if we do look back at the R34 GT-R, the Skyline, that car was way ahead of its time. It had a screen just like this with different parameters you could check. There was so much technology in that car. I believe it had all-wheel steering and just so much into it for a car from the 90s. That was a really big leap up from the R33, and just in general, you never saw a car that had that type of tech. And then when we look at the R35, the first car that was for the US market as well, this car, very similar. This had Bugatti Veyron 0 to 60, and then track performance was right up there with Lamborghinis and Ferraris. So it's a car that has the supercar performance, and yet it's actually still very practical with normal seats up front, an actual usable backseat, and a big trunk. And being that it's just a Nissan, parts and maintenance and reliability is normal. A lot of people, way before I ever bought this car, said it would be a nightmare to maintain, things would be so expensive. In the 2 years that I've owned this car now, a $30 oil change is pretty much all I've ever done. Every 5,000 miles. At 35,000 miles, I did do the transmission and differential flush. That's a $300 to $400 job, but that's every 35,000 miles. And that is literally it. $1,500 tires is normal for any type of summer tire. So maintenance, reliability, there's nothing special, there's nothing crazy. So then as far as the driving goes for the GT-R, the thing I like about it is it can be just a really good normal car, but then if you put the transmission, the traction control, and the suspension all in race mode, we'll go over into manual using the paddle shifters. And I have an active exhaust, so we're gonna straight pipe the car right now. But now the car turns into a complete rocket ship. It is precise, it is loud, it is fast. I have mine tuned up. It's about 200 horsepower over stock. Wow. This is a car that it makes the blood go to the back of your body. It is incredible. The sounds it makes too. Oh man, it is something else to drive, and the fact that you can get this performance for under $50,000 now, looking at an 09 or a 2010, that is unreal. You cannot look at another car for 45 grand that is going to be this fun and this fast. It just does not exist. It is crazy. And the more and more I drive brand new cars that are out there on the market, it's hard to justify certain cars. It makes every other car just look like kind of a waste of money, in all honesty. As far as a sports car goes, why would you buy anything else when you can get, you know, this type of performance, that type of performance, and especially the GT-R now on the used market, one of these for well under half the price of a new GT-R. It is such a hard car to beat. And as far as reliability goes and different years to watch out for, a lot of people do comment and ask me, you know, which year should I get? Should I avoid an 09 or an 010? Honestly, you don't really need to avoid any of them. They seem to be pretty reliable cars. You'll see a lot of 2009, 2010 GTRs for sale, still in that price range of 45 to 50 grand for those ones. They might have higher mileage, but the thing is, you see them out. You see people with cars with that mileage of those years, and there's nothing wrong about getting an older one with that kind of mileage and being those years. As far as I know, and I'm not the most expert person out there as far as GTRs go, but from what I've heard, the early year cars just can't handle the modifications as well as the newer ones. From what I know, 2014, which is my car, the suspension and transmission was updated quite a lot to make it a lot more robust for more mods and more power. So with my car being straight piped, bigger intakes, bigger injectors, and then the stage 3 tune, this car is roughly around that 600 wheel horsepower mark, and it can handle it well. This is not maxed out. I can do upgraded fuel pumps and then go E85 even, and that would about max out the transmission and the whole drivetrain within the car. So if you do go with the first few year cars, just know that with modifications, you probably don't want to go that crazy. Maybe just stick with a stage 2 setup, and then after that is when you might have issues. So I don't really see an issue with going with an older car. There's really nothing wrong with that. Every single year though, they did upgrade the car. Every GT-R year that you look at, the next one newer is a little bit better. If I went with a 2015, I would have the cool headlights with the little LEDs, I'd have LED taillights, and then I would have these pieces right here on the center in red leather as well. So every year there's something better, which in any car, you know, the next one is always better. But at least you know that you are still getting a twin turbo V6 with ridiculous power, with ridiculous modification potential, and you're getting a car that is just one of those cars you really can't beat for the price. I think if you're looking for a sports car, there's so many options. There's just so many different choices you can go with. There's brand new cars for, you know, 40 to 50 grand, and then there are plenty of used ones, very high-end cars for really low prices, and just a really good blend of cars in today's market, which is crazy. And I think at this point, the more and more I have driven this car, it just seems to, it kind of grows on you. I've gone back and forth on me liking this car, not liking it as much as I thought I would, and kind of going back and forth with my opinions on this car. And since I now have the 2020 Supra alongside this, which is at the end of the day a very normal, basic car that is still a fun sports car, but being that that car can turn into pretty much a Toyota Camry when you're just driving it in normal mode, it makes me appreciate the raw feeling you get in a GT-R. It's just something you can't get elsewhere, and it's a special car to drive. Whenever I'm not driving this car and driving anything else, honestly what I'm thinking in the back of my head is I cannot wait to get back in the GT-R. That thing is so special, so unique, and I wish I was in it. So that's what I always think about whenever I'm not in this car. I feel like when I'm ready for another car, it's going to be the Supra that gets traded for the next one, and then I feel like after that I'll trade this for a newer GT-R. There's nothing else like it, and it's a car that the older it gets, the more you drive it, the more you use it. It's a car you want to buy and keep for a while because you're constantly learning new things about it. And because the pricing, you know, 40, 50 grand for a good one, then in the $60,000 range is where there are some really good lower mileage, you know, one-owner cars, kind of like my own car. That is such a kind of a narrow price range too, in all honesty, which makes them hold their value pretty well. Like this car, looking at competitors, it's still worth 63 to 65 grand. So 2 years later, I might lose like 2 to 3 grand in depreciation, which for a couple $1,000 to own a car like this, that is pretty amazing. Anybody who bought a brand new Hyundai for 30 grand, I mean, they literally lost 15 grand in 1 year. And given the new ones are now starting at like 110 up to $250,000 for one of these, it makes them to where the older ones, the used ones, are still going to maintain those prices just because the cost to get into a new one now is even more expensive. It's crazy how much more expensive they're getting, but that makes it amazing for the used market, especially anybody who bought one new even back in 2009. But I think that's about going to wrap it up. Buying a GTR is probably one of the coolest decisions you can make as far as a sports car, because you are getting something that no other car can really compete with. And I'm not just saying that as a biased GTR owner. The fact that obviously I drive a ton of cars for a living, I'm always driving different cars, from new ones to used ones, and I have yet to find something that is exactly on par with this. And the fact that you can modify it reliably, I've had zero issues with this car whatsoever. And I don't drive it like a grandma. I get on it a little bit and, you know, have some fun with it. And it has never left me stranded, never had a check engine light, never had a single issue. And it's been an amazing car to own. But I think that's about going to wrap it up. I would definitely recommend buying one. If there's one in your price range, all you got to do is make sure it's in good shape, good history, you know, good maintenance, all that kind of stuff. Make sure it's not destroyed all around. If you find a good, clean car with a good record, it's probably going to leave you with a trouble-free experience owning it, and you're going to have a pretty special car. And the more you drive it, the more you own it, the more miles you put on it, the more mods you do, you're going to find more and more little things about it that just blow your mind with how cool of a car it is for the price. But that's going to be it for today's video. Give the video a thumbs up, smash that subscribe button, stay tuned for plenty more content to come, and I'll see you guys next video.